What's up, YouTube? This is Lil Draco coming to you for the first time. I wanted to do this video on topic 2012. It's been discussed here on YouTube and Live Leak and pretty much every other video source and forum out there on the internet for the last couple years. It's really been blowing up recently, more and more as more people learn about it and they start coming out with movies about it. I've done a lot of research on it personally, and honestly, I don't know if anything is going to happen in 2012. I'm hoping nothing does happen, or the more likely or the more hopeful scenario that we hit a state of higher consciousness, which is one of the theories out there, which is supposed to occur when we so-called hit galactic center. It's said that we're going to hit a state of higher consciousness or frequency in which humans go for. I mean, that's a plausible or better scenario. I like that instead of all the doomsday stuff. But realistically speaking, I can't say that's going to happen. I can say that we have scientific evidence proving right now that our magnetosphere or stratosphere is causing a lot of issues. I mean, we have holes in it, a lot of creatures that migrate just based off of magnetics, like salmon and migratory birds, homing pigeons, etc. They're not migrating where they're supposed to, which is proof that something is happening with our poles. I mean, something's wrong, and we don't know what it is right now. Scientists recently discovered that, well, not recently, they've discovered that every 20 years, the sun has a polar shift of its own. And this occurs every 20 years, and when it shifts, its pole shifts, and as a result, it emits solar flares. Normally not a big issue. We have our stratosphere, which protects us from it. And when it happens, it's just like we have a giant shield around us that protects us from all these harmful solar flares and solar radiation. So it's really not a huge issue. We're due for another one in 2012. Now it seems to be an issue because they recently discovered that we have a hole in our stratosphere which is about the size from it extends in size from the equator to one of the poles. So it encompasses about half the radius of the Earth, or the radius of the Earth, correct. Half the diameter, if you want to take it in perspective. Big hole in which we don't have shielding. It boggles our mind, the astrophysics, on how we could have such a hole. So that alone isn't promising. The fact that this solar flare is getting ready to occur also isn't promising, because now we know that this is going to occur, and when it occurs, instead of our poles being the same and repelling like they usually would do, because Earth has its polarity being set at 1 and the sun has its own polarity, now they're going to be opposites. So these flares are going to actually be attracted to Earth as they're being spurred out instead of being repelled. That would generally be acceptable, or thought to be acceptable. Now, that doesn't mean our stratosphere is not going to repel them. However, it does mean it's going to repel what it can, but we have a giant gaping hole right there, so that doesn't look too promising for us. When this is to occur, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with electricity, but basically what would happen is the electromagnetic current would pretty much go straight into the Earth. Now, anyone who's familiar with electricity knows electricity takes a path of least resistance. So it would go down, go straight to the Earth, but instead it also has to take exit points, just like lightning hitting the ground. It exits out somewhere. Its exit point would be, therefore, for it to come back up. Problem with this is our transistors and everything else, if this were to occur on such a large scale, aren't powerful enough to withstand this. We don't have resistors on them big enough to withstand the so-called or expected um, trauma that it's going to cause. Therefore, it would pretty much cause blackouts throughout the world on a large scale. Now, anyone who knows anything about these large industrial, I can't think of the word right now. He just had a brain freeze. Transistors, etc., etc. Know that they go on back order. Any of these big ones that run our cities go on back order for pretty much 1 to 3 years just to get one. Now, you imagine the whole world getting hit, and before last time something like this really occurred where it affected us is when we had telecommunications or where they used Morse code. And it really wasn't a big issue because each city was on its own generator and it affected one city. But now all of our cities are like a massive grid where we're producing 4 to 5 times as much electricity running at one any given time than when it occurred back in the early 1900s. That's not good. That's not a good sign at all. I mean, honestly, that frightens me more than anything because I grew up with there being electricity all the time, and most of us here just on YouTube can't go 1 or 2 days without electricity. If this were to happen, we're talking about not being able to flush your toilets, you're not being able to get food, your water's not going to come in, everything that operates our cities are going to go down. For me, that would be catastrophic. I'm sorry, I mean, I'm not trying to be a doomsdayer or whatever, but if that were to occur, honestly, that would be a bad thing because most of our stuff is operated. We wouldn't even be able to, you wouldn't be able to call anyone, you wouldn't be able to do all the things that we do on a normal basis nowadays. We'd have to go to old forms of communication, old forms of trying to get people across. I mean, everything we know is run off of electricity. So that is like worst case scenario for me. That's what I see as worst case scenario. Um, Let me know your thoughts. You know, I mean, I've heard a lot of theories and I've listened to a lot of things. I mean, if you have any video response to this or you know, have a little more insight onto it, then I might have personally, then fill me in. I'm all ears. Would love to hear what you guys have to say. All right, Lil Draco out.